Well, I've arrived at my final location in this series of videos on photographing Ireland, County Donegal, and it's a magnificent county, and I'm glad that I'm ending it here at what's probably its best known landscape location, which are the Slieve League Cliffs. I've been spoilt over the last couple of nights that I spent in Port camping there. And so it's really just a quick stop for me to take a photograph of the cliffs. The cliffs are about 600 metres high, so they say they're the highest cliffs in Ireland. You know, there's a few people in Achill might argue with that, but they're 3 times the height of the Cliffs of Moher, and they really are stunning, and it's a breathtaking place. I've seen a number of photographs from here, and I'm going to go with the standard shot that most tourists come away with from this location, but we'll do our best. There's a nice little bit of cloud in the sky there. It's kind of about 2 hours after sunrise here, and the sun is coming round and just picking up parts of the cliff, so most of it will be in shade, but I'm hoping to get a few little shafts of light coming through and lighting 1 or 2 areas, and also the light starting to pick up on the sea as well. So let's walk up and down. As you can see here, this is the actual viewing platform here. You'll see it down below, and it runs up behind me there. And it's not that touristy at all, you know. After being in Port, I had feared that the place might be overrun, but it's only 8:30 in the morning, so maybe it will be later on, and I've got here in time. So I'm going to find a location. I want to get, there's a little bay below the cliff here, and I want to get that in the right hand bottom corner of my image, so I have a clear picture of what image I want here, and then I'm really just going to wait for the clouds to pass by. So it's and this might be a little tip, you know, so if you're photographing and there's fast moving clouds, pay attention to the clouds and their position in the frame, because they are a structure in the actual photograph, and you know, be aware of where they are, how fast they're moving, etc. Well, a little bit of cloud has moved in, and I'm glad it has. When I arrived at first, I took just the standard exposure time, and it was quite nice actually. There's a lovely bit of movement on the rocks, as you can see down here, running right the way along the cliff, which kind of defines the edge of the cliff where the cliff meets the water. But I wanted to exaggerate or enhance that effect, and I've put a Lee 15 stop filter on, and the only problem I have is my Manfrotto tripod had a couple of problems with it. So a note for Manfrotto, you know, make sturdier tripods please, or ones that are more have more longevity. I have as you can see, my little travel tripod there. There's a wind coming along the cliff and in here, and I've taken one long exposure already. It's a 4-minute exposure. I have those 4-minute exposures very well timed. I just rank the ISO up, you know, to 200, 250, get a 125th of a second exposure time. And once the light meter in the camera is reading as a good reading, spot on, I have 4 minutes, and that suits me fine today. I was shooting with a soft grad, a 2-stop soft graduated filter with a long exposure, and it left where there was a tiny bit of blue in the sky, it left a really deep blue. It's not so much a cast, it's probably what was there over the 4 minutes. So I've taken that off now, and I think there's less blue in the sky, so I'm going to get a very streaked sky. I'm not sure whether I like that, and what I may do in post is take what I'm getting in the sea here, the movement in the sea, and use the sky from my original exposure.
So here is that standard exposure at 1/15th of a second. What I like about this image is the sky. I've used a 2-stop soft graduated filter just to bring down the brightness of the sky, and also the cliffs. The cliffs here are illuminated by the morning light just coming and casting its first rays on the cliffs. And this really is a sunset location, but it works really well here and provides great contrast running along the whole length of the cliffs. What I don't like about this image is the sea, and this is often the case when you're quite distant from the sea, and there's those choppy waves, and even the area around the sea stacks is not well defined. You could hardly pick the sea stacks out. Just from the natural appearance of the sea in this weather, with this type of exposure, about a standard exposure as such. So the next image is that long exposure that I spoke about. I don't like the sky here. It's not too unpleasant, and during the long exposure there was minimal light on the cliffs, so you can see they're quite flat compared to the standard exposure. What I really like about this image is the sea, and particularly the area around the sea stacks, and the way the water, or the white area of the water, that movement in an S shape, and it actually is a defined S shape through the sea stacks, and that works really well, and it draws the eye into that area. You'll notice that the sea stacks, they stand out in this image, where in the previous image you'd hardly notice them. And the actual blandness of the sea in this, that uniform look to the sea that a long exposure gives, it plays well in the image overall. So what I decided to do was I blended in the sea into the original image, and I did that quite simply by painting it in Photoshop, very carefully painting in around the edge of the cliff, and that's really it. That's the image that you see in front, which is quite stylized and maybe a little bit similar to what you'd see from John Hind many years ago, but I like it. I like this image. It's an image taken in daylight, so there's no rich colours at the magenta or red end of the spectrum, but yeah, I like this image. So there it is.
Time I've left Donegal and moved south into County Sligo, and Sligo is renowned for Ben Bulben and Drumcliff and W.B. Yeats. It's a poetic county, and Yeats is to Sligo as Wordsworth is to the Lake District, and it really is a magical place. It's got some wonderful little gems in it, and in this vlog and maybe in the next vlog I'll explore some of them. But I'm starting here at what is probably the best viewpoint, in my opinion, of Ben Bulben itself, and it's a compressed scene of a castle, Classiebawn Castle, which is renowned for being the home of Lord Mountbatten, the last Viceroy of India. So this viewpoint of Ben Bulben looks over the shoreline here, the Classiebawn Castle, and then Ben Bulben in the background. Well, as luck would have it, whilst trying to capture the immensity of Ben Bulben, which is up to the right of picture here, I came down a little laneway, and what became very clear was that's not the shot that I was destined to get from this trip. I've already been through a field laden with pig slurry, and I left my hiking boots in the car and just brought my driving shoes. So that was a mistake, and there was no photograph really at the end of it. There were some thistles underneath Ben Bulben, and that's really it. At the same time, the battery in my camera failed, so things weren't looking good, and the skies were quite grey, and the colour very, very very bland as such. So I'm delighted that I've got a little photograph here of this stunning little laneway with the you know, quite a wide patch of grass in the middle of the Boreen as such. And then you've got Ben Bulben's sister mountain over there, and I really should know the name of it, but I don't. And that leading line, fantastic leading line with a few trees on the left. There's a few hawthorn here on the left here. I'm not sure what that chap is there. He might be a rowan. But I'm delighted with this little shot. It's the middle of the afternoon, but it's a nice picture to pick up on a scout, and that's what this is. I'm just driving up back roads to see if I can get an image, a decent image, and that's one that's quite nice. So delighted with that. Well, it's Sunday afternoon, and I did have second thoughts about coming to Glencar Waterfall, and sure enough, it's absolutely chock-a-block with tourists, and everybody's having a good time. And it didn't interfere at all with enjoying this waterfall. It's absolutely stunning. You know, earlier in the year I was in Iceland, and there's some magnificent waterfalls that this really is just a dwarf of a waterfall. But what it has is the growth around it. It's completely enclosed in trees and ferns. Now, it's not the easiest to photograph. I set up on the viewing platform just here in the corner, and it's really the only place to photograph it from. And I use 24 millimeters, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, just to see what worked best. I was really happy with the composition. It's overcast, so there's lovely shadows in the image, and I think I've got lovely movement in the water as well. There's nothing really on the right hand side to balance the image, so the stream enters the frame on the right hand side of the image, and it would have been great really to hop into that stream with a pair of Wellingtons. I have them in the car, and maybe I should have brought them with me, but I didn't on this occasion, and I'm going to take what I have. It's well worth coming to see Glencar Waterfall, so if you're in Sligo, make sure you pay a visit. And if you get a nice overcast weather, you see the light on it now, that would blow out the highlights. But when I was taking the photograph, it was just nice and overcast, and it worked very well. Now there's one other photograph, and again it's looking back towards the Ben Bulben range of mountains from the lake out here. Now hopefully I'll still get overcast weather. The sunlight, it's popping in and out of the clouds all afternoon. And the image is really looking back along the lake, and there's lovely trees around this lake as well, so it may well be worth coming back for. And the next vlog in the series will be in County Mayo, and the landscape photographs of County Mayo. So there it is.